Hey guys, my name is Shreyas and welcome to Simple Biology, and today we're going to be talking about the first major type of polymer, and those are carbohydrates. Now if you look here, you might be able to guess what carbohydrates consist of. Carbo, that looks like carbon, and then hydrates, I think I mentioned this multiple times before. The prefix hydro typically relates to something with water. So carbohydrates are things which contain carbon and then water molecules as well. Okay, so let's look at we talked about how polymers are made up of monomers. Let's first focus on the monomers that make up carbohydrates, okay? So the monomers that make up carbohydrates are called monosaccharides, all right? And they're typically a multiple of CH2O. So what does that mean? So that means if you're looking at a compound and you wanted to know if it was a monosaccharide, it must be a multiple of this. Let's say we had the compound. Let me write this down for you. C5H10O5. Well, this would be a monosaccharide because it's a multiple of CH2O. If I multiply everything by 5, then C1 becomes 5. And if I multiply 2 by 5, that becomes 10. And if I multiply that 1 next to the oxygen by 5, it becomes 5. So that's what it means by multiple, okay? I'll give you another example. Let's say we have C4H10O7. Well, this probably isn't a monosaccharide because this isn't a multiple of CH2O because it's C4, the 1 next to the carbon is multiplied by 4, but then the 2 next to the hydrogen is being multiplied by 5 to get H10, and then the 1 multiplied by the 1 next to the oxygen is multiplied by 7 to get O7. So this is probably not a monosaccharide. Okay, so that's what that means by a multiple of a CH2O. Now, glucose is an important monosaccharide, and this is probably the only monosaccharide you should know for the AP biology test. If you look here, glucose is C6H12O6, and again, this is a multiple of CH2O. If you multiply this by 6, you'll get C6. 1 times 6 is 6, 2 times 6 is 12, and then 1 times 6 is 6, so C6H12O6. So this is a monosaccharide. And it looks like this. It has a nice ring. If you look here, it has this carbon ring here, going around like this hexagon. And then it has many hydroxyl groups. There's a hydroxyl group here, 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 and there's also a hydroxyl group right there. And as you should know this from watching the previous video on functional groups, because it has so many hydroxyl groups, glucose is actually soluble in water. Okay, and it's a major source of energy for cells. And glucose will be actually focusing on how organisms take glucose and convert it into energy on our our video on cellular respiration, but that's way down the line. Just know that glucose is a major source of energy for cells. Okay. Now, disaccharides form when two monosaccharides bond together through dehydration synthesis. And we talked about what dehydration synthesis is, so this should not be too difficult to understand. And whenever they bond, it forms what's called a glycosidic linkage. Now, if you look here, we have a monosaccharide here, we have a glucose molecule here, and then we have another glucose molecule here. And I'm going to show you how they react through dehydration synthesis. So if you look here, there's a hydroxyl group here, and then there's a hydrogen atom. There's a hydroxyl group right here, but the only thing that matters is the hydrogen atom. So what's going to happen is this hydroxyl group will react with the hydrogen atom, and they will form water. So that's going to form water. And that's dehydration synthesis. Always there's going to be a water molecule that is left out. And then this carbon is going to single bond to this oxygen right here. Let me go ahead and erase all of this. So this oxygen atom right here is going to... I didn't get it. So this oxygen atom right here is going to single bond. And now we're going to get what is called a glycosidic linkage. So now we have this right here is a glycosidic linkage. Because we had two monosaccharides, they reacted through dehydration synthesis, and they formed a bond. And this bond right here is a glycosidic linkage. Okay, so that's what disaccharide is. Now let's look at what a polysaccharide is. A polysaccharide is a polymer of a carbohydrates. Okay, you can see the prefixes. Mono means one, monosaccharide, so that's the monomer. Di means two, disaccharide means two, and then poly means multiple, a lot. So polysaccharides are the polymer of carbohydrates. And there's actually four. Let's look at the first. There's actually four you should know. There's a lot, but there's four that you should know. The first two are storage. Okay, storage means storage of energy. These two polysaccharides are store energy for organisms. The first one is glycogen, and glycogen is a polymer of glucose molecules. So if you take multiple monomers, multiple monosaccharides, which are glucose molecules, and you bond them all together through dehydration synthesis, you one of the polysaccharides you could get is glycogen, and it's a storage polysaccharide, meaning it's for energy, and it's found in animals. Okay. Now starch is similar to that. It's also a polymer of glucose molecules, and it's for storage. It stores energy for plants, not animals. Okay. So there's the respective carbohydrates for animals and plants. Okay. And the other two you need to know are chitin and cellulose. Okay. Now, chitin is these two polysaccharides are for structural purposes. Okay, they help support the shape of the cells within organisms. All right. Let me talk about cellulose first because you've probably heard of this. Cellulose is found in plant cell walls. And cell walls. You might remember this from pre-AP biology or even middle school. But cell walls are found in plants, and they help support the plant cells. And cellulose is the polysaccharide or the polymer which makes up plant cell walls, and it's for structural purposes. Okay, again, and they can't be digested by most animals. That's why whenever you eat, if you went outside and you ate a tree, you probably wouldn't digest it. It would just go through your digestive system. So cellulose cannot be digested by most animals, okay? And it also is a polymer of glucose. We talked about how these two are polymers of glucose, glycogen, and starch. Cellulose is also a polymer of glucose, okay? And now let's go to chitin. Chitin is found in the exoskeletons of insects, spiders, and other arthropods. And it's also found in many fungi, and they're also for structural purposes. If you look at an ant, and the ant, if you've ever, let's not say an ant, let's say a cockroach. If you ever stepped on a cockroach, you've heard that crunch sound. That crunch sound comes from the exoskeleton of cockroaches. And the polymer that makes up that exoskeleton is chitin. Okay, so these are four you need to know: glycogen, starch, chitin, and cellulose. But that's all you have to know about carbohydrates, and carbohydrates are as simple as that.